Aliens mocked Earth's inferior tech until we shot through their starship's hull. The tripless formation was what the Beezer people called the command structure of their starships. A navigator, an arms officer, and a captain made up the entire crew. At the moment, this particular trio was laughing at the sight of an odd human ship they had just discovered while exploring a newly charted region of space.
"What sort of aberration is that?"
Captain Zanru's voice echoed from within the massive metal helmet that encased his head. His tiny body floated freely in the zero gravity of the command bridge, spindly arms and legs no thicker than a child's wrist drifting lazily in the air. The helmet itself was a grotesque thing, a sphere of burnished chrome larger than his entire torso, connected to his neck by a flexible collar of synthetic tissue and fiber optics.
"Zoom in on the feed. I want to see this thing properly." "Attempting to comply, Captain,"
Navigator Aniru responded, his own form suspended at his station across the circular bridge. Like Zanru, his body was dwarfed by the massive helmet interface, making him look like some bizarre mechanical flower with a stem too thin for its bloom.
"The preliminary scans indicated some primitives' first attempt at space travel. The AI's interpretation suggests they call themselves humans, though the translation interface is still processing their crude electromagnetic signatures."
He paused, adjusting something invisible to the others.
"I'll need a moment to deploy the large optical probe for proper magnification. Their vessel is peculiar." "Should we just shoot it?"
Weapons Officer Trivaru interjected, his helmet swiveling to face inward toward the center of their tiny circular bridge. The three of them formed a perfect triangle, each suspended at their station, facing each other like points of a star.
"Could be target practice."
Zanru felt his expanded consciousness grow even more as the optical feed finally resolved. What he saw defied every principle of starship design the Beezer had developed over their 1,000-year spacefaring history. The vessel was long, impossibly, laughably, absurdly long. It stretched across his visual field like someone had taken a respectable ship and pulled it like taffy until it became a needle in space. It looked less like a ship and more like someone had welded a series of cargo containers end to end and decided to call it space-worthy.
"If we shoot it,"
Zanru mused, his tiny hands gesturing expressively despite no one being able to see them inside his helmet,
"we'd be doing these primitives a favor. Look at that thing. One sharp turn and the structural stress would snap it. Too long to maneuver without breaking the whole structure. Too thin to carry any meaningful weapons array."
He chuckled.
"What were they thinking? Let's make our ship as impractical as possible." "Maybe they don't understand basic physics,"
Aniru suggested.
"Look at those thruster placements. They're distributed along the entire length. The amount of coordination required just to move in a straight line without inducing catastrophic oscillation. It's like they built a space-going noodle,"
Trivaru added with undisguised mirth.
"One sudden move would collapse the whole ship."
The bridge filled with their laughter, a sound like wind chimes in a digital storm. Zanru felt his confidence swell.
"Think of the commendation,"
Captain Zanru said, his excitement making his tiny legs kick involuntarily in the zero gravity.
"We engage, we survive, which against that thing is a certainty, and we return with data on a new species' first fumbling attempts at space travel. The Academy would use this in their courses for centuries. How not to build a starship, example 1. "The primitive's flying stick,"
Aniru chimed in, already composing the report in his head.
"The space noodle incident,"
Trivaru countered, warming to the theme. They laughed again, harder this time. The human ship hung in space before them, silent and still.
"Trivaru, prepare a single missile. Class 2 should be more than sufficient. We don't want to vaporize them completely. Let them limp home in case they have any escape pods.
Missile armed and ready,
Trevorrow reported moments later, his tiny fingers having completed their motion across his controls.
Shall I paint them with targeted sensors first? Give them a chance to soil themselves.
No need, Zanru decided magnanimously.
Something shaped like that could never dodge anyway. It would take them 30 seconds just to begin a turn without shearing stress. Fire when ready.
The weapons officer needed no further encouragement. On the shared feed, a single point of light separated from their ship. A Beezer smart missile, capable of tracking, evading, and adapting to any countermeasures. Against modern ships, one rarely sufficed. Against this primitive stick ship, they considered it overkill.
Missile away,
Trevorrow announced unnecessarily. They could all see its progress on their displays.
Impact in 40 seconds. Should we open communications? Let them know why they're about to have a very bad day.
After,
Zanru decided.
Let the lesson speak first.
His words died in his throat. The strange ship did something impossible. Along its entire length, separation charges fired simultaneously. What had appeared to be a single absurdly long vessel suddenly broke apart into dozens, no, hundreds of individual modules. They scattered like a school of fish before a predator, each moving independently, some accelerating, others tumbling, creating a cloud of targets where once there had been one. Their missile, programmed to track a single large target, hesitated. Its onboard AI frantically tried to reacquire a lock, struggling to determine which of the hundreds of modules was the real target. In that moment of confusion, the modules scattered, rendering the missile effectively useless.
What in the old starts?
Nero said, his instruments going wild trying to track all the individual pieces. Then, as quickly as they had separated, the modules began to converge, magnetic grapples and mechanical arms reaching out, locking together once more. In seconds, the ship reformed, but not in its original configuration. Now, the long axis pointed directly at the Beezer vessel. The entire kilometer-long structure had reoriented itself to face them head-on.
Shields!
Zanru screamed, but he was too late. A flash of light erupted from the far end of the human ship. The entire structure recoiled backward from the force of whatever it had just fired, the recoil rippling along its length like a wave. The modular nature suddenly made terrible sense. Each section could move independently to absorb and distribute the massive recoil forces. Then their shields simply ceased. One moment, the energy barriers that protected them from the hostile void were there. The next, they were gone, overwhelmed by a kinetic projectile moving at a significant fraction of the speed of light. The round didn't explode. It simply punched through their shields like they were made of tissue paper and kept going, erasing a portion of the hull. The bridge shook violently. Zanru felt himself torn from his station, his tiny body flung across the bridge like a rag doll. His massive helmet, suddenly a liability in the chaos, crashed into a bulkhead with a resonant clang. Aniru and Trevorrow suffered similar fates, their own helmets ringing like bells as they collided with various surfaces. When the shaking stopped, the three Beezer officers floated in disarray. The human ship had reformed again, that terrible long axis once more pointed at them. He could see the magnetic coils along its length still glowing from the discharge.
Communications!
Zanru shouted, his tiny arms flailing as he tried to reach his console.
Get me communications now!
Aniru, closer to his station, managed to activate the universal translator. The AI connected, establishing a basic communication protocol with the alien vessel. Zanru didn't wait for pleasantries.
We surrender,
he transmitted.
This vessel surrenders unconditionally, please! We apologize for our aggression. We didn't understand.
A screen materialized in the center of their bridge, showing the interior of the human vessel. Zanru expected to see aliens as strange as their ship, massive beings to match the massive weapon they commanded. Instead, he saw a figure that, while alien, was remarkably ordinary. The human captain sat in what looked like a comfortable chair, not suspended in zero gravity, but held in place by some form of artificial gravity they couldn't even dream of achieving. He was perhaps twice the height of a beezer, with a thick, muscular build and what appeared to be fur, only on the top of his head. "This is Captain Logan Thorne of the Earth Coalition vessel Little One," the human said. "Your surrender is accepted. You fired one missile, we fired one warning shot. I'd say we're even, wouldn't you?"
Yes, Zanru agreed hastily, his massive helmet bobbing as he nodded. "More than even. We offer compensation for this misunderstanding. Resources, information, whatever you require."
The human studied them for a moment, and Zanru became acutely aware of how they must look. 3 tiny beings floating helplessly in their bridge like balloons with too much helium. "I think," Captain Thorne said, "we should start with you explaining why you thought attacking an unknown vessel was a good idea. Then you can explain who you are, and why you're in Earth's space." As the formal negotiations began, as Trivaru worked frantically to restore their systems, and Aniru calculated just how much of their cargo they'd need to offer as compensation, Zanru found himself staring at the schematic of the human ship his sensors had compiled. The modular design, the distributed thrusters, the entire length serving as a massive gun barrel. They hadn't been looking at a ship with a gun. They'd been looking at a gun that could fly. A weapon designed to accelerate projectiles to speeds that made energy shields irrelevant, wrapped in just enough ship to get it where it needed to be. That had been their fatal mistake, assuming that different meant inferior, that unusual meant wrong. "Captain Zanru," Logan Thorne's voice cut through his thoughts. "I asked if you understand our terms."
"Yes," Zanru replied. "We understand completely."
And he did. He understood that somewhere in the galaxy, a species had looked at the vastness of space and decided the best way to greet it was with a gun so large that it was hard to comprehend. Most of all, he understood that the next time they encountered something that looked impossible, they should probably try talking first.